Rivalry in sport is a beautiful thing. That's what gives life to a sport. That's the life energy of most sports. That's what birthed most stories. And that's what's missing in Olympic weightlifting. Now, sure, here and there will be two lifters that will go against each other in one way or another. And you could consider that as a rivalry, but most of the time it's nothing more than a one or two competition thing. You can think about last quad, Carlos Nassar versus Nino Pizzolato, which was kind of a big thing at one point, but it also really wasn't. Carlos became very dominant, very fast, and after one or two competition against each others, it just wasn't a rivalry anymore. But that just wasn't always the case. Actually, I would say that one of the best rivalry of all time, in weightlifting at least, was all the way back in the early to mid 90s. And it was in between two guys that were some of the best featherweight, lightweight, however you call it, lifters of all time, which were Valerios Leonidis from Greece and of course Naim Suleimanoglu from Turkey. Now that's kind of an interesting one because as a starter, one is Greek, the other one is Turkish. Those two countries don't really go well together, but it actually goes even deeper than that. Neither of them were originally from the country they ended up competing for. Naim was actually born in Bulgaria and competed for Bulgaria for quite a while, and Valerios Leonidis was not born in Greece, he was born in the Soviet Union, and he also competed for the Soviet Union until 1991. What that means is that before competing for two different countries that were already rivals in a way, they were also competing for two different countries that were also rivals. So that kind of set up the base of the rivalry. But of course, it wasn't a rivalry that was carried along for either lifters. Naim actually first became a world medalist in 1983, and for Valerios it was 10 years later. So all throughout the 80s, Naim competed, he peaked, he became the best weightlifter of all time in 1988, totaled 342.5 kilos. But then he kept competing for quite a while. Actually, the end of his career was not in 1988 when he won his first Olympics, but it was in 2000 when he bombed out at his fourth Olympics. And the place where both of these lifters will first meet will be in 1992 at the Barcelona Olympics. There, both of them competed at 60 kilos. Naim didn't have a great day by any means. He had one of his worst days ever, you could say. He only totaled 320 kilos. Of course, it was 15 kilos over the second place finisher, and it was more than enough for the win. But what was very interesting is that at this specific competition, the third place was tied with the fifth place finisher on bodyweight, and the bronze medalist had to be decided on bodyweight. One of the tied lifter was Valerios Leonidis. He totaled 295 kilos at 60 kilos, which is a universe away from Naim best of 342.5 kilos, but still, he was there, and he was just as good as the bronze medalist. Had he weighed just a little bit less, he would have been on the podium with Naim for the very first time. And yet, the first time that they will actually compete against each other will be in 1994 at Euros. And that will be the start of a pretty incredible streak that's actually almost hard to believe. So in 1994, Valerios Leonidis will, for the first time, compete with Naim, place on the podium with Naim in first position and himself in second position. So he was already pretty close, but not that close. Still 7.5 kilos under Naim. But it was promising. He totaled 317.5 kilos, which was 22.5 kilos over his finishing lift at the Olympics 2 years prior. And in 1994, the World Championships were in Istanbul in Turkey. With Naim being Turkish and having defected from Bulgaria to compete for Turkey, it was a pretty big deal and Naim had to win. And he did again, and Valerios once again finished second, but this time Valerios took the last lift of the competition. He attempted a clean and jerk world record, and he failed it, but had he made it, he would have been the world champion, a Greek world champion in Turkey, in front of the national hero named Suleimanoglu. Now, this dynamic lasted all throughout the quad leading to the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. In 1995 at Euros, Valerius will actually place only 2.5 kilos behind Naim, and at Worlds he will actually tie him. He totaled 327.5 kilos, the same as Naim, and totaled 327.5 kilos, which was 32.5 kilos over his total of the Olympics in 1992. Both of the lifters had gained 4 kilos to move up to the 64 kilo weight class following weight class changes, and it seemed that Valerius was catching up big time. He looked good enough to beat Naim come the Olympics. Now in 1996, Valerius will compete at Euros and Naim won't, and that will actually be Valerius' only gold medal in his career. He will win Euros and he will be actually maybe as much as a favorite as Naim leading to Atlanta. And the Atlanta Olympics will be one of the greatest showdown of all time. I invite you to go on and watch the full session. I will link it in the description, but to sum it up, Valerius ended up on the snatch at 145 kilos. Naim ended at 147.5 kilos. They were just as good on this day. And so come the clean and jerk, Valerius had to clean and jerk more than Naim. But he was a lighter lifter, so he only needed to tie Naim's total to win. What that would mean was multiple world records. And that's what happened. On his second lift, Valerius clean and jerked 187.5 kilos. And he was followed by Naim that was taking his last lift. Naim also did 187.5, and then just like in 94, he had to sit back and watch. This would be the first and only time an Olympic weightlifter would win 3 gold medals at the Olympics. And Valerius will load 190 kilos, a huge lift, and he will fail the clean. He did make it in training the year prior, but he just couldn't make it on this day. This was the end of one of the greatest rivalry of the history of weightlifting and maybe in the history of sport. Following this, Naim will retire from weightlifting just to come back in 2000, place 3rd at Europeans and bomb out at the Olympics. Valerius will compete again. He will move up to the 77 kilo weight class first and then to the 69 kilo weight class. He will win a few medals here and there, but he will place 6th at his 3rd Olympics. Following this, both lifters remained friends, and when Naim passed in 2017, Valerius Leonidis was able to see him just one last time.